Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time!
3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game!
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Float game for the win! Ayler's gone. Goodbye. Touchdown, Indy. Woo! IU America. They got a football team now.
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Oh, now, here's Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Thursday. Glad to have you with us. Appreciate you, no matter where or how you're listening. Keep it locked where you got it on the radio station dial. And if you're following along on YouTube, well, make sure you do the things that we need you to do. Subscribe, hit the YouTube like button and all that good stuff. Appreciate you, no matter where or how you been doing. Hope it's been a good week. You're on the backside now as we've got one more day until the weekend hits, although it's kind of an open weekend of sorts. But IU basketball going to fill the void IU football leaving for Hoosier fans. But an open weekend on the football slate on the collegiate side for the Hoosiers, but not for the Colts, not for the Boilers, and the rest of the Big Ten. And Major League Baseball as playoffs. Yes, as the playoffs continue to roll on over for my Cincinnati Reds as they lose their second game in a row to the LA Dodgers, and they are out of the series. Several of these series, though, have are going to go the full way, 3 games. The Cubbies and San Diego, well, there's one for you. That one will proceed on, as will most of the others. Another one that's not. The Yankees, they're done. They're over, out, as the Red Sox take care of that high rolling Pabro, I believe, right? That series over 2-0, to my knowledge. Let's see. Coming up next. Well, last night, finishing up, Cleveland 6, Detroit 1. San Diego blanked Chicago yesterday 3-0. Actually, I'm sorry, I apologize. The Yankees ended up winning that game 4-3. So that game or that series will continue one more time for another game at least. The Dodgers, though, do close out the Reds 8-4. They scored 18 runs in those 2 games. The Reds scored 9. Hell, the Reds may have scored more runs than any other team in the playoffs. I think the Reds may have scored the second most runs in the playoffs, but they're going home. Today's lineups to finish these series out. Detroit is at Cleveland. You know, all these series, by the way, were taking place at the same place. All 3 games in one location. Detroit at Cleveland today, San Diego at Chicago this afternoon, and Boston at New York tonight at 8 o'clock on the ESPN. As the baseball playoffs continue, heading into the weekend, a nice little appetizer for the weekend sports offerings that we'll be playing. Of course, then you've got NFL football coming tonight as the Thursday night game between the San Francisco 49ers and the LA Rams. That happens this evening as well. So plenty of options on a cornucopia of sports options on the menu for you this weekend. The Colts are at home hosting the Raiders. The Colts are a 6.5-point favorite to win that game, to go 4-1 on the season. We'll talk to Matt Taylor today about that. Looking forward to Matthew joining us. The Cubbies are in. So hope everybody's getting happiness off of that for a little playoff action. You know, today, not to be morbid, but it was 70 years ago today that Hoosier native James Dean passed away. 70 years ago in a two-car accident out on a remote California highway. I think he was heading towards a race, but he was driving his Porsche with his mechanic who survived that. But sad deal. But yeah, I think that his movie Giant had just come out. Obviously that was way before my time, but we don't see how that goes. I mentioned yesterday Tino Sunseri, who was the lone staffer to leave Indiana's team last year, already looking for a job, is out at UCLA. That announcement coming yesterday and the continuing fallout of their coaching situation there. And what's next for him? Who knows? We'll have to find out. But UCLA interim coach Tim Skipper spoke publicly yesterday for the first time since the announcement that had happened for Tino Sunseri. Of course, the new move came just a few weeks after UCLA fired head coach Deshaun Foster. Skipper did not reveal whether he was involved in the decision to let Sunseri go, only saying that it was mutually agreed upon between the school and the coach. Blah, 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 blah. He did, however, offer up a few kind words about his time working with him. I want to thank Coach Sunseri for what he's done here. Skipper said he had great conversations with him. Had great conversations with him during my time, just talking ball. He's a coach's kid and just getting better by that way. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I appreciate everything he's done here, and him and the university mutually agreed to part ways. And that's what I have to say about that. That's what he said. Yeah, sad deal. But Sunseri was in his first season as the Bruins offensive coordinator and coached only 4 games, all losses, prior to arriving in Los Angeles. He was the co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Indiana, of course, last season. He also worked as a graduate assistant under Nick Saban at Alabama for 2019 to 2020. So he's got that in common with his former boss. 36-year-old former Pittsburgh quarterback will now hope he can find a new school in 2026 following his departure. As the Bruins, they will turn to Jerry Neuheisel, the team's tight end coach, son of former coach Rick Neuheisel, who is now an analyst. So there you go. Mike Shenanigans said James Dean Day just actually happened in Fairmont. Big deal. I've been up there before. I've been to his gravesite, which is just a grave. Just a grave that's been there now for 70 years. But man, what a big star he became from little old Indiana. And that's back when stars, it kind of, when they were from places like Indiana and Nebraska and all that, it was kind of a big deal. Well, now it's where they're from is not really spoken about so much. So there's that. But a big weekend of sports coming up, regardless whether your particular team is playing or not. There's still lots going on. And NCAA football, of course, this weekend. Games tonight. Sam Houston at New Mexico State. Not a big deal, especially when you have an NFL game on. And I think that's partly why the college football schedulers have opted to go. There are 5 games on a Friday night versus 1 on a Thursday. Now, I think you can blame the NFL for that. College used to have, they had even played on Tuesday at some points. But when the NFL decided to take over Thursdays as well, colleges wanted to go someplace to find another night to get games on TV. And unfortunately, Wednesday just jacked the week up. So they went a day later to Fridays. Now, none of these Friday games, save for maybe one, are of consequence. Western Kentucky at Delaware, Charlotte at South Florida, New Mexico at San Jose State, Colorado State at San Diego State, West Virginia at BYU, number 23 BYU, the lone game of probably of substance to check out. But that's okay. We rolling it into Saturday, baby. Number 12, Georgia hosting Kentucky this weekend. Just some of the games jumping out. But we'll talk about that in more detail. Coach Griffith joins us today, as does our friend Dustin, Schutte, Matt Taylor, and Cabro. Looking forward to talking to each and every one of them. The Big Ten schedule this weekend, as you don't have to worry about an Indiana game. You can take your pick. Wisconsin goes to Michigan. That should not be Michigan a 17.5 point favorite there. The number 22 Illini head to West Lafayette as just a 9.5 point favorite. Purdue's been playing much better. Does Purdue have a chance in this game? We'll talk to Dustin Schutte about that. And plenty more. Coach Griffith will join us next. We'll go through some of these games and see who can do what. Appreciate you being with us on this Thursday. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after these messages.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemooreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Thursday. Coach Shannon Griffith joins us now. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Great day today.
It's always a great day when you're not pushing daisies, I guess, and that's a good thing. Hey, another big weekend of college football ahead of us, and the Indiana Hoosiers are off this week, but plenty of other action that will be taking place, plenty of games that will have a bearing on the college season, on the Big Ten season, on the CFP season, on everything as we roll on. But Indiana coming off of a win over Iowa on the road, which was of great importance. It was not as pretty as we would like, as fans would like to have seen it, but the one thing that did remain solid was Indiana's defense, and that has been the one constant over the last two seasons for these Hoosiers, as Brian Haynes' squad is doing it again, and a big reason why Indiana was able to have not as great a performance offensively last week on the road, yet still come out of that game with a win.
Yeah, I mean, I think their defensive line has really picked it up over the last couple weeks with being a lot more aggressive, getting in the backfield, creating havoc in the run game, being able to get pressure with four guys instead of having to bring that extra fifth guy. So from that standpoint, I think that's been the biggest scene thus far of this year is the defensive line, the output, and they roll about 7 deep on that defensive line. So they've got fresh troops at times in the rotation there that keeps them fresh and everything. Now, I think the biggest question, and I'm not saying it's because of anything other than he's so good of a player that he's more recognizable in the sense of the opposing team's scouting report as Kamara. You know, he just hasn't been as flashy as maybe he was a year ago. I think a lot of that has to do because of the respect that he has as a defensive lineman, and the teams are making sure he is accounted for and devoting more attention to him, which has enabled other defensive linemen like Lando and Tucker to, pick it up that part of the game that maybe Kamara was such a big part of a year ago on the defense.
Absolutely. And the defense, like I said, has been a stellar reason for Indiana maintaining its position going forward, and will be. Last week, they had an injury with D'Angelo Pons not out there. They were able to withstand that and get by, and hopefully now he'll have the 2 full weeks heading into the Oregon game to heal and recalibrate as the Hoosiers will head out west for that big time game, a game that Indiana doesn't have to win, but I still, not to make the college football playoffs, but to host a CFP game, they're going to have to win one of those 2 games. And it starts with this one. And to me, the tougher of the 2 tasks, even though they'll be playing in a stadium half the size as Penn State's, doesn't matter. It's still just as loud out there, but more importantly, more formidable for what I think they're going to see on the field, because the big difference between offenses in Penn State and Oregon. Oregon has a much more talented, a faster offense. Drew Alara came alive a little bit for Penn State in the second half, but overall, I just don't see that they are as quite as dynamic as Oregon. And it's going to be a definitely a formidable challenge for those Hoosiers heading out west.
Yeah, and Dante Moore's a better quarterback than Drew Aller because he presents problems for defenses. Because he can, they do a good job of moving his launch points, drop back, gets the ball in and out of his hands pretty quick. He can move and throw on the run, and then they can mix here and there, even some quarterback runs with the kids. So his production's been the top point of their offense as of now. And the other thing is they got some wideouts on the outside that can go get it. So Indiana's defense will definitely be tested this, next week going up against Oregon, which is in every statistical category that Indiana is when it comes to top 5 this or top 5 that. And so it's going to be a monumental challenge going out west to play what I believe is the best team in the country overall, not just in the Big Ten. But like you said, Indiana does. I mean, last year I think the beating Michigan was kind of a signature win in the sense that at that point in time, Michigan started to really get it together. Then they went and beat Ohio State, and they went and beat Alabama in the bowl game pretty handedly. And that was one of those games, hey, they've got to win one of these games. They got to beat a signature named school. And whether it's Oregon or Penn State, they need to beat one of them because of just what they're up against in a national awareness from a national awareness standpoint. That's going to be a big beneficial for them because you got teams like Ole Miss who now had LSU at home and beat them, and that was a top tier game, and that's a top tier win. So those are the type of things that Indiana is going to have to do. They're going to have to beat a team like Oregon or Penn State to really exclamation point a year that's outstanding.
Yeah, and something I was already thinking about the SEC, and now I see that Lane Kiffin has come out and said pretty much the same thing. So great minds think alike, right? No, just kidding. But the SEC for so many years were just dominated by Alabama. Then it was Georgia that stepped up to they don't have that right now. I think that Ole Miss might be the best team in the SEC at the moment, but we don't know that. And then Lane Kiffin, now the Ole Miss coach, has come out and said dynasties are over in the SEC after the league added Oklahoma and Texas and recently announced it would play a 9th conference game. And I believe that. Mm-hmm. You add to that NIL transfer portal, which has really leveled the playing field. And the SEC, that's why you see so many teams ranked in the top 20, top 5 right now out of the SEC, but none of them are, it's kind of a rotation at the top. And the Big Ten still does not have that. The Big Ten still has the dominance at the top between Oregon and Penn State, Oregon and Ohio State right now. Those are without question the two teams perceived to be at the top, and that there's no perception in the SEC that there is a quote unquote unbeatable top team, whereas that's not the case in the Big Ten. Now Indiana can change that a little bit by adding to that, but it's not the top 3 teams I'm talking about. I'm talking about 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm talking about Michigan, or whether it's Illinois, or whether it's USC. There needs to be other teams that are in this upper level, so to speak, that could play on that level, that aren't expected to win, but hey, on a given day can win. Now, we saw Iowa give Indiana all that they wanted last week, but I don't know that was as much Iowa being as good as having a good game plan, to be honest with you, especially defensively. But that's where I see the Big Ten needing to equalize itself to the SEC is in depth of field a little bit. You need to go in a conference the size of the Big Ten with 18 teams. Half your teams don't have to be on that level, but a good 33% of them have to be. And so 6, 7 teams should be in that category, and I don't know that the Big Ten quite has that at this moment. Illinois was hoping to be one of those. I don't think that they are. Now, can that change as the season progresses? Yeah, it can, but we're deep enough into the season right now to get a good understanding of that. I don't think Illinois is, although they did surprise me with that bounce back win over USC, who I thought was inching their way into that very category that I'm talking about. But then with their loss, I'm like, okay, is it? Now, one big difference between these two leagues, the SEC does not have multiple teams traveling 3 time zones backwards to play and vice versa. Now, you can blame the Big Ten for that. Will that constantly cause an inability for the Big Ten to maintain a wider gap of top level teams?
Well, I do think it's something that has to be studied to a degree, because the teams that come east do not out west, that come to the Midwest or the East Coast, don't necessarily perform as well as they do when they're back at home.
And we've seen that statistically, but in either way, actually.
Yeah. And the thing that I'll give a pass to USC on is that they were required to play a 11 o'clock kick at Illinois because of, being on national TV at that time.
And didn't they play Purdue the week before that?
Yeah. 2 weeks before that.
Okay.
But that kickoff on Saturday for them, their kids, is like 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, absolutely.
And so to me, I do think that's an unfair advantage for
I agree.
in the Midwest because of what that scenario involves. So that needs to be evaluated by the Big Ten and not allow that to occur, because that's an unfair bias, I guess you could say, to a degree. Yeah, I think the Big Ten, even the ACC and Big 12 have the same problem. There's 1 or 2 teams that are at the top of the heap. Now they're maybe not be as good as Ohio State or Oregon is, those top 2 teams, but it's the same problem. There's not I guess you would say that, 5, 6, 7 teams that any one of those 7 could win the conference championship per se in that league. But I do think in time that will happen. I do think we're seeing it already in the SEC because of parity, and the parity is coming from the portal and the ability to build a team that's instantaneously a contender to a degree in their own conferences. I still can't understand why Iowa wasn't ranked. I mean, because of what I watched between them and what they did at Rutgers. I know they hadn't
beaten anyone. They lost to Iowa State
by 3. I think it was.
I know. I'm not defending. I'm just laying it out. They lost to an Iowa State team that's ranked. And I agree with you. I think that this Iowa team could end up being a ranked team later on. And a question I do have: let's say when a team plays another team and they beat them, and they're either ranked highly or not ranked at all. If 6 weeks later they are ranked or not ranked, how does the game that you played them, how does that affect that? I mean, is that just in perception or what? Because
I think the way they view it is at the time you play them, whether it's a ranked team or not. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with.
And I think that's stupid because, not to interrupt you, but it's stupid because people's perceptions at the time may not just simply be accurate. And it takes a while, like, oh, wow, this is actually a better team than we thought. How many teams, look at Indiana last year, for example. Well, they weren't ranked that highly in the beginning of the season. As a matter of fact, it took a while for people to jump on board. It took a while this season for people to jump on board already. And now they're a top 10 team all of a sudden. Well,
look at Vanderbilt. Look at Missouri. I mean, those teams are in the, like 16th and 19th in the country.
And I'm wondering, Missouri is not one of the best teams in the SEC.
Yeah, right. Right. And they fight the same problem to a degree that Indiana fights in the Big Ten. They're not recognized as I guess you would call it a top tier football team or program in that regard. But the success that both have had in the last couple of seasons would say otherwise. And they should be ranked higher. And Vanderbilt should be ranked higher for that matter, because they're undefeated. They went into South Carolina and destroyed them. And now they go to Bama this week, which will be a big time game. And we know what Vandy did to Bama last year. So it's, I just think there's so much parity coming into the equation. I do think in some respects that the AP poll, or however you want to look at it, is so obsolete in the sense that I just don't think those that get a vote really, truly care about other teams that are not in the conference that they're covering. I just don't think there's an incentive there to go watch who they're supposed to be ranking that's outside of their conference and stuff. And I think it's a watered down whatever look at things, and they put things down that you look at it and say, what in the heck is this guy thinking? You know what I mean? And you see that all the time. I mean, you see it all the time with writers doing this. I don't know whether it's meant to be, I just don't understand who this team is, or I don't care that they are X, and I don't think they're a good program at all, irregardless of their record. And you see that time and time again in the rankings. I mean, there's been more negative coverage of the AP poll in the last 2 weeks, in a sense of
because the AP poll is it's crap. It really is. I don't think it's ever been it's either never been as bad as it is right now, or it's just never been as examined as it is right now. But I think that it is being exposed for being brand biased right now more than it ever has been, because there are just a lot more teams now that are on par with each other.
Right.
But without question, the best of the best is 90% of a chance going to come from the SEC or the Big Ten. There are some outliers. Miami, it might end right there. Am I missing somebody from outside the conference?
Well, you can up there, depending on what happens to Florida State. That's another one that could
that's true. That's true.
In that regard. And the Big 12 this year. Oh, it just escaped who I was thinking of. TCU. Maybe it's TCU.
Yeah, but didn't they just take a bad loss to Iowa State or someone?
Well, that wouldn't be bad, but Iowa State's ranked.
Well, no, I know, but I meant a loss. Yeah, they lost to someone. They're 0-1 in the conference. I can't remember if was it Iowa State or was it like Arizona State?
I think it may have been
Arizona State.
Yeah, I think it may have been Arizona State.
So you look at the Big 12. TCU no longer ranked right now, by the way.
Yeah, they dropped out.
Even though they're 3-1 overall, they lose to a ranked team and they're out. But that's, again, because they weren't thought highly of at the beginning. The Big 12 currently with 4 ranked teams, and the Texas Tech Red Raiders, the highest of those, at number 11.
That's the
Iowa
team
State,
I was thinking
14.
of.
Yeah, they're good. Now, they are good. Arizona State and BYU.
They're kind of like the Indiana this year in terms of going from non-existent to now being a very talked about ball club and what they've done to date with their team. But again, they had a complete roster turnover because they went out and got all these players out of the portal, and they reshaped and rebuild their team. And that's what you can do. And that's the, that's the unknown of why teams can go from being one way a year ago to being another way the very next year. And that's because of the rev share and the portal deal and everything. Heck, Lane Kiffin's playing with a kid that played at Division II Ferris State right now as his quarterback, and he's lighting it up. I mean, how much portal money or NIL money did he have to spend on that kid? Probably not very much, and he's right now the talk of the SEC and how he's playing. But he did that at Ferris State up in Michigan for the last couple of years and led them to national championships. So there are so many good players out there, known and unknown, that teams can find a way and find, lightning in a bottle, so to speak, and, turn it around like Texas Tech or even Indiana has in that regard.
Hey, we're talking college football right now as it will continue to roll on in what is this, week 6?
Yeah,
I believe.
it's crazy.
College football season. Indiana off this week. Purdue is not. They play a game. We'll talk more about all of that and more. Also, the Big Ten looking for an infusion of capital of up to $2 billion.
I was just reading that.
We'll talk about that and much more. Coach Griffith is with us, back with more from the ISB studios right after these beautiful messages.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, on this Thursday of week 6. What did I say? Week 6, 7, 1, 2,
Yeah,
3,
week
4,
6.
5, week 6, actually.
Well,
The
7,
college football season. Week,
zero.
Week 1. Well, I
Don't count zero.
Yeah, week 0, and still it's week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is week 6. So Indiana off this weekend. Purdue is not. They will host the Illini, who are looking to bounce back. It's amazing how that win against USC was, maybe because of how it came in dramatic fashion with that walk-off field goal. It kind of, I don't want to say it erased, but it quickly delineated the 63-10 loss that they absorbed the week before. But maybe part of that also was Indiana scooting by the score of 20-15 at Iowa. So I don't know. It's all about perception, man. All about perception. But regardless,
I think the win at Iowa and the perception of the whoever out there, that was a really good win for Indiana. I would say.
Well, it was, but it also exposed the offense, I think, a little bit, because
just like
they
Michigan
were
did.
Almost, I don't want to say inept is not the right word, but they were neutralized for a good portion of the game by a good and decent defense, but not a great one. So it brings to mind questions. We've got plenty of time to talk about that as the Hoosiers are off this weekend. But the Big Ten is in discussions about a private capital deal that would infuse at least $2 billion into the league and its schools, sources told ESPN yesterday. The discussions include a 10-year extension of the league's grant of rights until 2046, sources told ESPN, which would ensure long-term stability in the Big Ten. Now, when you start selling off stuff for that length of time, I think that you either go in one of two directions. You're either ahead of the curve, or you potentially put yourself in a position like the ACC is currently in, where they are gravely undervalued at, the amount is undervalued, but that could be also because of the product on the field. The ACC football has, let's be honest, it has sucked up until now. Now it doesn't. Now you've got Florida State and Miami that are rolling out of that league. I think Louisville is still undefeated.
I do too.
But the last few years it's been terrible. But they've had issues with Clemson wanting to sue for more money, and boy, they're not looking great for deserving more money right now. But anyway, the discussions include a 10-year extension of the league's grant of rights, like I said. According to sources, the private capital deal and grant of rights extension have been discussed for months and presented in multiple forms. A deal and the grant of rights extension would also be a distinct blow to the outside entities attempting to form super leagues around college sports, which is something that's good for fans, I think. Because I just wonder, is it just a matter of time before that happens when year in, year out, the national champion is coming from either the SEC or the Big Ten? Whenever the last time Clemson won a national title is how far back you have to go, since it was not the Big Ten or the SEC. How many times out of the last 15 years has it not been the Big Ten or the SEC winning the national championship? Year in, year out, they put in the most teams. Last year, Notre Dame was able to climb to that national championship game. But part of that is because of I go back to the leveling of the playing field of the SEC. Now, the Big Ten needs that, I think. I think that because the SEC right now stands to get more teams into the college football playoff, Joel Klatt has it that way, than the Big Ten. And speaking of Joel Klatt, I'm going to talk more about him later, because he is something good for college football versus, say, Feinbaum. You know what? I'm going to change his name to Fine Bum.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to start calling him. Fine Bum. That's my new nickname for him. So Joel Klatt versus Paul Feinbaum.
I think Joe Klatt is
comparing leads.
I think
he's very equal. He's an equal opportunist. He's a football guy. He knows ball. Right. He knows what he's talking about. Feinbaum is just a mouthpiece. Hence why he's wanting to head into politics.
Because Joel watches the games. Feinbaum
he knows the games on
That's
top
what I mean.
of that.
But he watches all of them. Not just the Big Ten.
While there is support from nearly the entire league, according to sources, a few of the league's biggest brands, including Ohio State and Michigan, are still in discussions with the league. The aim is to have unanimous support before a vote. Now, I'm sure that Michigan and Ohio State are saying, well, we deserve more money. No, Michigan, you need to kind of be quiet, because you're a bobber in the water going up and down. Ohio State has kind of gotten up to the top and stayed there. They won the national championship last year. They are number one again this year. Michigan, you have cheated your ass off to get to where you were. So that's another reason why Michigan to shut up. You cheat. Gee whiz, you had a football coach suspended for 4 consecutive years. I mean, isn't there already a suspension on the board for next year?
For Michigan?
Are they done with the suspension?
I think they're done with it. I think
so far.
Yeah, for now, until something else pops out of the water.
But anyway, there's a decision on the private capital deal is expected in the upcoming weeks. from the schools in the Big Ten, sources said, and nothing is considered imminent or certain. There are 3 different private capital entities being considered by the Big Ten. Sources told the ESPN, and the league has not taken a vote on any plan. So, so you've got some equity. How are they going to benefit? I'm like, okay, this is above my pay grade. I'm going to be honest with you, but man, it's how will this be dispersed equally among the teams? And which I understand that, but at the end of the day, I also understand when you are Ohio State, Oregon, how do you not complain and say, look, you're giving us the same amount that you're giving Northwestern, who accounts for diddly jack? They don't account for anything. They bring in nothing. No one cares to watch them on TV in football nor basketball. So why are they getting the same amount of money? Why? What are they bringing to the league besides the average GPA? Seriously.
Right.
I mean, that's questions that would be asked, and I get it. It makes sense.
Yeah, the one other thing that I saw in there too was the ability for the Big Ten to basically put advertising on the jerseys of each Big Ten school with this type of deal. Now, my question is though, what does that preclude another Big Ten school saying, well, we're going to do this with so-and-so, so we want that on their jersey as well?
Well, because it's a universal agreement across league wide.
But goes to your argument of why Ohio State would say, look, I can get X more and me just doing it ourselves than us being a part of something that's not going to be distributed based upon one's notoriety and brand.
Well, because what's good for one is not good for all, and that's where having a group comes in, and you get. Is it enough for you to really rock the boat that much?
Not really, probably for
them.
But
what you're asking is a legitimate question.
That's what you were saying.
Is it possible for Ohio State to do that? Possibly, but yeah, it's almost wasted on a program like Northwestern. I hate to pick on them, but hey, it is. Now, you could argue that for, say, UCLA, but that's not quite the case because they're in the nation's number 2 largest TV market in the country.
All right.
Same for USC. So that's what they have to offer. Now, Northwestern's in the number 3 TV market, but they're not on TV. So,
yeah,
so now all kinds of ways to get money in.
Yeah, and it's only going to expand upon it once things get, ironed out on what an individual school can or can't do. Or what about players? I mean, are players going to be able to, on their own body out on the field, be able to, with their name, image, and likeness,
that's not.
So that's a question that I have as well, because that
their name, image, and likeness comes off the field.
Right. But I mean, if he's representing a brand per se, I don't know how this is all going to go, but it's interesting because I think this is kind of a model that probably Major League Baseball followed at some time, as well as the NFL, when it comes to this. And, how do you get capital into the organization? And this is where Tony Petitti's, I guess, vast knowledge of professional sports becomes vital in this in this arena of trying to infuse capital into each school, because, as you know, not every school is wealthy enough to support the number of sports that they've had now, based upon with the rev share and how that's all gone down. So what he's trying to do is find a way to help the institutions out, influx of money coming in to help support the athletic departments out there that, are trying to offer broad-based athletic programs, revenue and non-revenue, and not have to cut sports. I mean, that's kind of how I see this venture being in that regard. Plus,
Well,
I think it's another way of them trying to keep them from breaking off like Kentucky did and forming their own LLC. And
well, that's going to continue to happen within the athletic departments, which is fine. But the private capital company chosen would get money back through the new entity through annual distribution in proportion to its financial stake. The Big Ten will essentially have 20 equity shares comprising the 18 schools, the league, and this investor. So basically they get the same piece as the schools get, I guess. Sources told ESPN that this setup eliminates the need to give an outside investor a specific portion of control over decisions on board sets, something that college presidents have generally been uncomfortable with, as they should be.
Right.
This stuff has to stay. It's bad enough that some of these decisions are made with some of the people that are making them. But yeah, well, who knows? I mean, the only thing that would be bad about going outside is if it was in their interest instead of their interest. But they could probably bring some good business savvy to it along the way. But the conference is not selling a piece of the conference. A league source told ESPN traditional conference functions would remain 100% within the conference office, scheduling, officiating, championships. The new entity being created would focus on business development, and it would include an outside investor with a smaller financial stake. So there you go.
Right.
There's that. So we've got that going for us, man. But big games coming up this weekend. Any of them your favorite? We've got 30 seconds.
Man, I tell you, I haven't had a chance to really look at it to the point of thinking, that's a really good one. I do think I'm interested to see how Purdue does this weekend. Again,
Me too.
Think, they've, the Browning kid, the quarterback, has had right up to date, had a pretty darn good year. And I'm going to be interested to see how they do this weekend because they're a team right now that's kind of laying low in the bushes, but actually playing pretty well. They played pretty well against USC, even though they lost that game. But I think they've got the right coach at the right time there with who they brought in. And I just think they're going to get better as time goes on.
Absolutely. Coach Griff, you can stick around with us for another segment if you like. We've got more coming up. Dustin Schutte will join us later. Matt Taylor from the Colts as well. Dustin's up next as well. Looking forward to it. We'll talk Purdue when we return to the ISB studios after these messages.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Thursday, joined now by our good friend Dustin Schutte from Boilers on SI. And the Boilers are not off this weekend, and they have a formidable matchup, but also an opportunity, Dustin, to kind of show that, hey, we're a little bit better than people think we are. Well, I already know. If you don't know that, then you haven't been paying attention. They are definitely not the Boilers of the last 2 years. And thanks to Northwestern and UCLA, definitely not the worst team in the Big Ten. As they fought, man. I've said it all season, Dustin. I'm impressed with what Barry Odom has done. I mean, we're not talking Kurt Signetti-esque turnaround here, but still, Purdue was worse than Indiana was actually in Tom Allen's last year, if in my opinion. But wow, what a great turnaround for them. But the season has not been kind to them, partly because the schedule has not provided a lot of relief. And I'm not sure it provides any relief this week as the Illini come back after Illinois just curb stomp them. But then they bounced back with a huge win over USC. USC was one of the teams I thought may kind of peek up their head out a little bit as being one of the best of the top six in the Big Ten, Dustin. But Purdue with a big-time opportunity this weekend.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And it's been kind of an emotional roller coaster for Illinois over the last 2 weeks. I mean, they experienced really the lowest of lows and then a really high peak last week with that win over USC. So this is going to be interesting. Purdue's obviously had an off week. They had an extra week to prepare for Illinois. A lot of the things that Illinois does really well pairs up against Purdue's greatest weaknesses. Obviously, Luke Altmaier's thrown 11 touchdown passes. He doesn't have an interception. Purdue's secondary has been very leaky through the first 4 games this season. Illinois' front is incredibly good. And Purdue's offensive line has really struggled, especially in that USC game, to keep guys out of the backfield, to protect their quarterback at times this season. But I think there is an intrigue level here from the fact that Purdue's coming off of a bye week and the fact that Illinois is now had 2 emotional weeks back-to-back for very different reasons. And then they've played 6 straight games now without a break. So does fatigue play a factor in this? You never know. And then there's the fact that under Brett Bielema, Illinois hasn't had a ton of success against Purdue. He's 1-3 against the Boilermakers. He was obviously much more successful when he was at Wisconsin. So there's just a lot of level. I think if you look at this game on paper, you're going to say Illinois is probably a 2-touchdown. I think they're 10.5-point favorite, but a 2-touchdown favorite in this game. But I think there's a lot of intriguing factors that play into this. And I think that the fact that Illinois hasn't had an off week now and they're going into week 6, and the fact that Purdue had 2 weeks to prepare for this and it's a home game for Purdue makes it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, and not only that, Dustin, if people can remember, not that long ago, 1 year ago, as a matter of fact, over in Champaign, the Illini were up 24-3 at the half against these Boilermakers who, let's be honest, sucked a year ago. I mean, they were god-awful. They were down 24-3 at the half. But then, oh my, I don't know what the hell happened at the half last year, but the Boilers would put up 40 second half points, 40 second half points to force an overtime in which they would lose by a single point, 50-49 in one of the, that's the biggest turnaround that Purdue has had in years. But wow, I won't forget that.
Yeah, that was it was funny because earlier in the week, offensive coordinator Josh Henson was kind of asked about that game because that was Ryan Brown's breakout game. He threw for about 300 yards, rushed for over 110 yards in that game, and was really a difference maker. And he was asked, he said, is there anything you see from that game? Is there anything you take from that game? And he said, my biggest takeaway was obviously the guy running the offense had intimate knowledge of their defense and what would give them trouble. And obviously Ryan Walters had been on Brett Bielema's staff for 2 years before he took the job at Purdue. So in a way, kind of almost, well, you can take a few things maybe here or there, but ultimately, if you don't have detailed knowledge of what's happening in that defense, you can't expect Ryan Brown now to throw for 300 and rush for another 150 this week. It's a little bit different situation. But, yeah, I mean, that was probably the only game in which Purdue showed any fight whatsoever. I mean, maybe you could point to the end of the season when they played Michigan State on the road. They had got down big in that game and fought back a little bit there too. But as you mentioned, Jim, the biggest difference, and I know that this is, I don't know if you want to call it a moral victory or a baby step or whatever you want to call it, but the fact that when I watch Purdue play, they don't look at the scoreboard. And I think that was very evident last week in the game against Notre Dame. It doesn't matter what the score says. They go out and they play hard, and it is legitimately, I know there's a lot of this coach speak out there, right? It is legitimately the next play, the next possession. They don't look ahead. And look, for a team that was 1-11, was so bad last season, to be in that kind of mindset, to have a team that fans can stand behind and root for, I think is such an important step. And we'll see. I talked about it on this show last week. This is a really important month for Purdue. They play an Illinois team that I think they match up fairly well given the circumstances. And they go on the road and play Minnesota. They got Northwestern and then Rutgers, and they could win anywhere from 1 to 4 of those games. So we'll really see what this team is made of, how much improvement they've made. I think their bye week worked out well for them. They had those first 4 games, and then they'll play obviously up until, I think the week before. I think their last bye week is the week before they play Indiana. So they've got a tough 7-game stretch here, but these 4 games here in October is really going to define Purdue's season, I think.
Yeah, and we've talked about the opportunity for them to be at 5 games by the time they take on Indiana, the last game of the year, which would once again put a little enthusiasm in that game, especially with it taking place up in West Lafayette. And we've seen what happens with rivalry games throughout the years, man. Sometimes it just doesn't matter if you have just enough. And by then you will have enough on tape. You will pull out all the stops. But it's just like Indiana, this upcoming, their next game against out at Oregon. To me, they're going to have to pull out some stops that nobody has seen. They're going to have to put in some stuff nobody has seen. They're going to have to do some things special, because while they are a really, really, really good team, Oregon is a really, really, really good team. So, and it's going to be on the road. But, hey, man, shout out to Purdue for being able to raise it up, because, I mentioned earlier, and I was already thinking this, the SEC, they don't have that dominant team this year. The Big Ten has 2. But then you've got Indiana, and I think there's a drop-off. I think there's a definite drop-off after Indiana. I don't. Who's the 4th team right now in the Big Ten that you would put up high?
I would still put Penn State in that category.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about Penn State. Forget me.
But I think we'll see what happens in 2 weeks.
Even with that, okay. If with that, I on a neutral site. Boy, I don't know that I would consider Penn State on a neutral field with their offense is not that great. But the SEC, my point is, they've got like 6-7 teams that I think you could throw it in a blender and on a neutral field, you don't know how it's going to come out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, LSU. There's a lot of really good teams in there. I would say Alabama. Yep. I would say I'd put it Indiana ahead of Penn State. And on
a neutral field, I would
even put them above Penn State at Happy Valley. Now, here's the caveat, and this is going to sound crazy. I think they have a really good chance to win that game. I think Penn State, and if you stacked up talent, I think Penn State's the more talented team, but I think their coach gets in the way, and we've seen this now for 10 seasons. And look, anybody who says James Franklin should be fired, I think you're dumb. I don't know how else to say that. Like, he consistently wins 10 games. He just made it to the semifinal round last season. But my problem is that in those games, he tends to play conservative. And when they were able to let it rip in that fourth quarter against Oregon, they were able to march down and score 2 touchdowns. I just feel like he plays so ultra conservative. And if Indiana comes into that game with 1 loss and a single digit beside their name, does he tense up again? And so that's why I think if it wasn't for that James Franklin, that ugly statistic, like at this point, it's not just an anomaly, right? Like it's a real thing. And I don't know whether he's pulling the play card from his offensive coordinator. I don't know what is happening in these games, but that's why I would put Indiana at number 3 right now and put Penn State at 4. And we'll see. I mean, Ohio State had their hands full on the road against Washington. I legitimately think all 4 of those teams could beat one another right now. Yeah, and I'll say on a neutral field too. I don't know that we'll see if Indiana can go on the road and beat Oregon, but I think on a neutral field, all 4 of those teams are very evenly matched.
Yeah, the old phrase, you are what you say, what your record says you are. Mm-hmm. And James Franklin, 4-21 lifetime against top 10 teams, 1-15 in top 5 matchups. So he'll get another opportunity more than likely when Indiana rolls in. Even if they lose to Oregon, they'll bounce out of the top 10, but they should be back in because they'll have 1, 2, 3 games to play heading back into there. So I would imagine that takes care of that. Also, the infusion of capital potentially coming to the Big Ten, $20 billion that will try to keep them on par with the Joneses. But more importantly to me, they've got to get this league spread out. You cannot have just Ohio State and Penn State and Oregon at the top. You have to have Indiana. You need a USC because of tradition, because of TV money or TV audience out there in Los Angeles. But you need those 7, good 7 teams like the SEC does right now that, in essence, I think that they would get more teams into the college football playoffs right now than the Big Ten will, without question.
Because of the talent at the top, you think?
Because the SEC has it's a little more spread out, and there's going to be we just named a bunch of them. Ole Miss probably gets in. Alabama gets in. Texas A&M gets in. People still think Texas gets in, and I don't understand that. Texas hasn't done a damn thing, hasn't beaten anybody. I don't understand why they're still thought so highly. But regardless of why, they are because of what's on their jersey. How hard is it going to be to keep Notre Dame out? They already have 2 losses already, and people are still talking about how does Notre Dame stay in? And I'm like going, how the hell are they in?
Right. Now, I think to your point, I'll see if I can phrase this properly. It's still early, and I haven't had my first full cup of coffee yet. I think you're correct in that the SEC will get more teams, but I think the SEC benefits from those preseason rankings more than anything else. And this is why I wish they would scrap those, because it's when you have those teams that are perceived to be good all offseason, that's all anybody's talking about. Oh, can Ole Miss, is Ole Miss a top 10 team? Is LSU a top 10 team? Alabama's near the top, Georgia, blah, blah, blah. And nobody was talking like that about Indiana. Imagine if Indiana entered the season as the number 8 or 9 team, right?
Which they probably should have.
And then all of a sudden, it's the Big Ten is automatically going to get 4 teams. So I think a lot of it is the preseason rankings. And look, I don't know. Maybe the SEC does have 5 or 6 teams that are better than anybody in the Big Ten. I don't know.
Well, I'm not saying better than anybody. I'm just saying that they have 5 or 6 teams worthy of
being in
the CFP.
No, I know what you mean. But I'm just saying, like, the SEC could be, they could have the 2 or 3 best teams. But we don't know yet. It's still only 4 or 5 games in. This is why I love that the playoff doesn't rank teams until the 8th week, but you can't tell me that those preseason rankings don't play a major factor. I mean, that's the primary reason why Indiana was last year, I think, on the cusp of not getting in, because simply everybody thought they were going to stink. And so they had such a high ladder to climb. And you can talk about the schedule, but if that was Mississippi State, that went through that, they're in no problem. Like it's just a matter of the league's perception, the specific team's perception. And that's why I think you're probably correct. The SEC is probably going to get more teams because we had to listen to Greg Sankey clamor and bang on pots and pans all off season about the strength of schedule. And
well, I will say this.
I think they listen.
I mentioned earlier, I didn't really talk about it, but Joe Klatt works for Fox. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Fox is Big Ten related there, but much different than Paul Feinbaum. That's my new nickname. I
like it. I like
Paul Feinbaum. Feinbaum is nothing but an SEC mouthpiece. Actually, he's nothing but a mouthpiece, period. But Joe Klatt yesterday was, in essence, saying what I'm saying right now, laying out how many, and there were, I think he had more. He didn't have Indiana in right now. He did not have.
Yeah, that's crazy to me.
I don't think he had them in. Or if he did, they were in the, the bottom four or whatever. But regardless, he is not brand biased. He's not Big Ten biased, rather. He will go, it's whatever he thinks. Now, he still thinks that Texas is going to be a part of this. I don't, but I haven't looked at their full schedule yet because I think that they have been overranked from the beginning. I am interested to see what comes of the first college football playoff poll as to what Texas, the perception of them is, because this has been all about Arch Manning.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And they haven't done jack.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's go over. They lose their first game to Ohio State. That's a tough loss. I'll give you that. But then they beat San Jose State at home. They beat UTEP at home. They beat Sam Houston at home. I'm sorry. I'm still.
It's a murderer's row right there, Jim.
Where's this big win that is putting them in the top 10?
Yeah.
It's non-existent. Now, and this week, they might as well be playing UTEP again as they although they do travel, they go to Florida. Now, October 11th would have been a great showdown when they host Oklahoma, but we know that John Mateer won't be in that game. So they're going to get another bunny. Man. Yep. Then they go to Kentucky. Then it's Mississippi State. Then Vanderbilt. They host at home. They do have to go to Georgia, but they host Arkansas, and they host A&M. I mean, A&M's not an easy game, but it's at home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's a relatively easy schedule. But
they were preseason number one. So as long as they get through it, nobody's ever going to question.
Right. Because Arch Manning was thought to be the second coming, and that's not the case. But I felt bad for him because he got so much grief after that Ohio State game. And it's like, this kid did everything he's supposed to, didn't open his mouth, spoke, the way he's supposed to talk. And just because his last name's Manning, everybody else put this stuff on.
Hyped him up like he was the next great thing. And he might still end up being a great college and NFL quarterback at some point, but clearly he just wasn't quite ready. Plus it's game one and your first game is at Ohio State. Like, welcome to college football.
And they did not. I mean, losing at 14-7 is not exactly
right. Exactly.
Yeah, their biggest problem is the same thing too. Is like you just pointed out about Texas. Penn State's in the same boat. Their wins haven't been overly impressive either.
Oh, and you want to talk about an easier schedule? Penn State. Oh my, they just played Oregon at home, and they have Oregon and they have Indiana at home.
And they go on the road to play Ohio State.
That's it. And that is it. Other than that, it's beefcake time.
But see, this is what I'm going to have to go back, and I'm bringing it up right now because if I remember correctly, Penn State was incredibly highly ranked last season. But you look at their schedule last year, West Virginia, Bowling Green, Kent State, Illinois, UCLA, USC, Wisconsin. They lost to Ohio State, beat Washington, beat Purdue, beat Minnesota, beat Maryland. Everybody complained about Indiana's schedule, but it wasn't like Penn State played this murderer's row. Now, they obviously went 11-1, made it to the Big Ten championship game, so you're not going to keep them out. But Penn State didn't really – they had a win over on the road against USC, a team that finished 6-6. Like Illinois finished with 10 wins, so I mean, I guess you can credit that, but that was a home game. It's going to be similar to their schedule last year is very similar, I guess, to Indiana's this year. It's just, where do we draw the line about the schedule, and how about we just look at, if you 11-1, let's not overthink this and just give that team a chance because they earned it on the field.
Well, I think that the Notre Dame is a perfect example of why they try so desperately to shoehorn the Irish in each year, because of brand, because of value of TV audience. And we're not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. If it's down to Notre Dame and Arizona State, nobody gives a crap about Arizona State. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't mean that negatively toward them. That's just the fact. What are your thoughts of the Boilers and the Brett Bielemas, the fighting Brett Bielemas?
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting game. I think I've said, the past couple weeks that I thought Purdue would play closer than the spread. I think a lot of things are going to have to go right. I legitimately think they have a chance to beat Illinois, and there's a lot, just because there's a lot of different factors here. Barry Odom knows Brett Bielema very well. They played against each other in the SEC. He's actually 2-0 against him by my count. As a head coach, beat him twice when Brett was at Arkansas. I mentioned that Bielema's had some trouble against Purdue. Purdue's offense, I think, is really good. I think it just gets overshadowed by the fact that its defense hasn't played particularly well. They can't have those pivotal turnovers like they had in the USC game, but I think that this is going to be a 31-27 type of game. And I don't know if I want to say the team with the ball last is going to win, but I think this is going to be a really intriguing game in West Lafayette. And this is, as you said, Jim, to start, this is a chance and an opportunity for Purdue to kind of close the book on 2024 and a 1-11 season and say this is a completely different team. So I'm expecting a really fun, exciting matchup. It's a rivalry game. Purdue's coming out of the bye. We'll see how it goes, but I think that this is going to be another one of those fun games, similar to the one USC, but I think the score is going to be a little bit closer.
Well, we'll certainly find out. Make sure you're giving Dustin a follow and keeping up with his content. If you're a Boiler fan, at Boilers on SI. Appreciate you as always, my friend.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Griff. Have a good day, guys.
See ya.
Appreciate you, brother. Up next, our good friend Matt Taylor. Matthew, the Colts host the Raiders next. We'll talk about that next with you on our way back right after these messages from Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
The ISC Sports Network is your home for sports content across the Hoosier State. Find us live on TV and streaming or archived on our website and our app. The ISC is your one-stop shop for the content you want to see, including high school sports, college sports, and other great events throughout the year. Subscribe to our streaming service and get access to it all. ISC. Local lives here.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's C-O-Y-L-E, to receive a discounted fundraiser. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Thursday, and that means a visit from our good friend Matt Taylor, the voice of the Indianapolis Colts, as this weekend they host the Raiders. The black and silver come to town as the Colts looking to go 4-1, Matt. A tough game last week. You go out west. You know, we talked about the travel and not to say that's what cost the game, but it was a close game. The Colts were right there. It just did not go their way. But after 4 games, I think everybody is pretty satisfied with where they are at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's the big conclusion after last week's game is that, you know, you played terribly in the sense that you beat yourself. And I think if you have to classify that game, it's more of a Colts loss than an LA win. All due respect to the Rams, right? I think they're a pretty good team, but that's the point is, you know, you come away from that game feeling really good about this Colts team. I think you feel just as good, maybe if not better, after 4 games compared to how you felt about the team when they were 3-0 through the first 3. You know, they had turnovers for the first time this season. They had 11 penalties. They had really bad, egregious errors. You know, you had the drop fumble at the goal line. You had a hold on the outside that negates another touchdown. I mean, so many things you can point to. I mean, you had protection problems, penalties inside the red zone, so many things you can point to as to why the Colts did a lot of self-infliction and harm to themselves in that game. And they still only lost by 7, right? And you had goofy 10 men on the field there at the end of the game, giving up the long touchdown. Certainly there's a lot to clean up, but you feel really good about the team as it relates to the talent they have. If they can just sort of clean up all of those little things that added up to big things, they're going to be okay. You know, they got outside of themselves in relation to how they played the first 3 games of the season in terms of clean football and obviously taking care of the football, but still you played about as terribly as you could on your own. And you still only lost the game by 7 on the road, a really tough place to play against a really good Rams team who I still think is one of the classier franchises of the NFC. And you went toe-to-toe with them while shooting yourself in the toe, if you will, you know, metaphorically speaking. So that's my big conclusion is that it's not really a feel-good loss, but you come away with it feeling undeterred about, you know, what this season can be with all of the goals that they set for themselves at the beginning of the season, obviously still very much obtainable.
Yeah, I see what you did there. You need toe. You need a toe. I can get you a toe. I can get you a toe by 3:30 with nail polish.
Well, that's a great Big Lebowski reference by you.
Oh, buddy, you set it up. You put the ball right on the tee for me there, but I love that.
You need a toe? I'll get you a toe.
That's just how many great lines were in that movie. I can get you a toe by 3:30 with nail polish. Yes. Oh, baby. But yeah, the Colts, that's you're not going undefeated in the NFL. And if you travel 3 time zones and you lose to a team that a good team by a score, yeah, no one's going to complain about that, especially when you're already 3-0 and rolling. And let's see, where are the Rams right now? They're 3-1 as well. So It's not like this, you know, they didn't lose to the Raiders, which I say that gingerly because, or I should have said the Titans, who were 0-4. But every time you see in the NFL, when you see one of these matchups, the Raiders are coming in 1-3. The Colts are 3-1. Well, that's an easy pick, right? Nope, not so fast, my friend. Those are the ones that, to me, are always the scary picks, man.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the nature of the beast in the NFL. I mean, there's so much parity. There's not a whole lot of separation on these rosters. All of these games come down to the fourth quarter, the final 4 minutes. Seemingly every game is decided by a 1 score. I mean, look at the Raiders. Perfect example, right? They've lost 3 in a row, but 2 of their 3 losses have been by 1 score. And one of their losses last week was by literally 1 point, right? They lost 25-24 and had a game-winning field goal attempt blocked on the last play of the game. And, if they execute better there, you were talking about a 2-2 team that, got a really nice win against Chicago. So, you take nobody for granted. You take nobody lightly. I mean, there are no homecoming games in the NFL, right? There are no warm-ups. There's no FCS get-right games at this level, man. So it's going to be imperative the Colts have the right mindset, and I think that they do. I think it's natural human nature to sort of dread the beginning of a new work week in the NFL. Wednesday's the kind of the line of demarcation when you turn the chapter and get ready for the next upcoming opponent. It's the big install day. It's just a lot of work. It's a lot of grind. You're going through a full padded practice again. I think in this case for the Colts, after a game like last week, they are embracing the grind and chomping at to be back on the game field, or in this case, the practice field this week, knowing they left so many opportunities and plays on that game field last week in Los Angeles.
Yeah, we mentioned the Raiders. They've lost their 3 games by an average of 1 score of a touchdown, more or less. And so that's that's a thin margin for error there by them. So nothing is considered a gimme, and they're going to have to continue playing as well as they have been playing. They're playing at home, so that should be good. Man, if the Colts get to 4-1 on the season, that just has to, which they probably already are, but people just have to be giddy, which I know you can't be that way because it's a long season, but if you could be, people would have to just be giddy inside the Colts headquarters after, what they went through last year and with this start and where they are right now.
Well, I mean, right. I mean, you're off to a fantastic start. And I think that's, again, why you're so disappointed in last week's game. It was so winnable. It was so right there for the taking. And you played so poorly as it relates to just beating yourself. I mean, the Rams have great players, right? Puka Nacua and, a bunch of guys on defense, and Jared Verse and Byron Young, and they're led by an all-time great and a future Hall of Famer and Matthew Stafford. But again, there's no matter how you slice that game, that was a Colts loss, not a Rams win. Like you can't convince a lot of people around here any other way, right? I mean, so much stuff you did to yourself in that game to lose it, and that's what happens in the NFL. More games are oftentimes lost than won. The team that makes the fewest mistakes oftentimes wins. And, the Colts had turnovers and a bunch of costly penalties. But that's the biggest thing I take from that game is this is a really good football team. It is. And if they just play a cleaner brand of football on the road, they're going to be in much better shape. And that was going to be a statement game. I still feel like to a degree they did make a statement because of how in the game and how much they should have won the game despite all of their own mistakes and their own, big time gaffes. So, you come home back-to-back games against the Raiders and the Cardinals on paper, like you said, 2 very winnable games. Heck, you could be 5-1. You could be, hopefully you could be going into this upcoming game against the Chargers with only 1 loss with their next road trip, ironically, back to the same place where they played the Rams. There's just a lot of excitement, and I think that's what you're seeing around town within the community. It's been like a glorious year for sports around here, as you know, with the Fever and the Pacers doing what they're doing, and then now the Colts are kind of righting the ship after 4 down years of missing out in the playoffs. There's a lot of things you can buy into in terms of the football production with Daniel Jones on offense. Jonathan Taylor, leading the NFL in rushing. There's just so much to like right now about this team. And I think you come away from that game last week undeterred, frustrated, yes, but not undeterred from the great performances that they've put into the first 4 quarters of the first 4 games of the season, roughly a quarter of the season.
Yeah, just an FYI, Puka Nacua, my favorite name to say as of right now on the season. Just love to hear it. Puka Nacua. Sounds like you're speaking a different language when you throw that one out. When you kind of are. But a lot of names are going to pop up this week as well when the Raiders come to town. Ashton Genty, the big-time running back from Boise State, he's been playing well so far in the NFL. Geno Smith, a former well-known name from the college ranks. So a lot of these names, I just saw that aside from this, Dylan Gabriel getting a start for the Browns coming up. It seems like a lot of collegiate names are popping up sooner in their NFL careers than they used to.
Well, I mean, think about what the two tight ends are doing with Brock Bowers and Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren is this year's version of Brock Bowers, and Brock Bowers is last year's version of Tyler Warren. You know what I mean? It's incredible what these guys are able to do and the versatility that they're able to show and just the impact they're able to produce right away as versatile weapons at the tight end position. You mentioned Ashton Genty. I mean, my God, he is just watching film on him. I didn't watch a whole lot of Boise State last year, admittedly, but seeing him in the draft process and then obviously 4 games with the Raiders, he runs incredibly hard. And there was this crazy viral stat going around last week before they played the Bears. But in his first 3 games of the season, it's kind of an indictment on their offensive line, but also a good highlight of just how hard he runs. But prior to week 4, 100%, all of it, 100% of his rushing total came on yards after contact, right? So he's getting stood up a lot at the offensive line at the line of scrimmage, but he's falling forward and he's getting, extra yards, and just that push, that physicality that he has is tremendous. And, had a big week last week, 138 yards. They, as a team, the Raiders ran for 240. And like you said, Geno Smith, for the most part, has found career resurgence. And he did it under Pete Carroll. And then, the Raiders traded for him coming over from Seattle, and Pete Carroll now the head coach with the Raiders. So those two know each other very, very well, have great familiarity. And it seems like a really good marriage. But, Geno Smith has done a nice job the last couple of years guiding the Seahawks to the playoffs a couple of times. This year has some weird splits. He's 8th in the NFL in passing, but he does lead the league in interceptions thrown with 7. His QBR, I think, is 5th worst. He's taken 12 sacks already. So he puts up a lot of big numbers in the passing game, but it can be deceiving with mistakes and just the lack of talent, I think, big picture around him. But like we've talked about, they've got plenty of weapons. It's an NFL team, and they can be dangerous if you don't take them seriously. And that's going to be the big objective this Sunday for the Colts.
Yeah, I remember I didn't watch Ashton Genty much at all last year until the end. But when I did see him, I was like, oh, my God, he's like a how they take the riding mowers and turn them into racers.
Yeah,
he's like a little riding tractor on crack. I mean, he just pounds and pounds and pounds. I mean, he's just a beast in there, man. But I think the Colts bounce back and get to 4-1 this week, man. And it'll all happen if you're listening to Matt Taylor. That's the best way to do this, man. Just do like people do on IU games. Put the TV on, turn the sound down, turn up Matt. It's just a lot more exciting when you hear that call from Matt Taylor.
Well, I appreciate you, brother. I do. It's going to be fun. It'll be back. I'm excited to be back at home. Two road games in a row. One of them was Tennessee, which is just a little puddle jumper. But that long trip out to LA, it took a couple of days to kind of get right on the right clock, if you will, from a body standpoint. So excited to have back-to-back home games and spend some time around town and do some things with a Saturday off day. But really excited to be back at Lucas Oil Stadium in front of the home crowd, my friend.
Yeah, I get it. I get the opportunity to do that as well next week, as I'll be heading out to Eugene following the Indiana program, as they will go out to take on the machine that is the Oregon Ducks, man. And they are just that after that huge win over Penn State last week. And what for a college team, what do you see the potential pitfalls for making that trip?
It's a good question. I mean, the hardest part is just not getting there too early, but also giving yourself some time to acclimate. That's the biggest thing. It's like we talked about last week. With these long road trips, for head coaches and football administrators, you want to have as routine of a week as possible. You want to do as much normal as you can. And it's really hard when you're having an abnormal road trip of that distance. But, that's the tricky thing is you want to get there. The Colts left at, I want to say 1:30 p.m. on Saturday, which meant they got to town in Los Angeles. I forget what time we rolled in, maybe, I don't know, 2:00 Pacific time. I have to do the math in my head. But, we were there we probably got there a little bit earlier than normal, but not terribly earlier than normal. And it's all just an effort to kind of, reset your body clock, make sure you're going to bed at a decent time as it relates to, when you're normally tired, but also in the time zone that you're in, if that makes sense. That's just the biggest thing is just negotiating that travel while also balancing, how you're supposed to feel at game time with the natural body clock and stuff. So, some teams do it different. Some teams for a long road trip like that, they'll leave Friday, but then you got guys that are displaced and they're off their routine, and so I think there's pros and cons to both approaches. But I think that's what Indiana's going to have to balance going out to Oregon is just, when do we get there? How much downtime do we want these guys to have? How much are we going to throw them off their normal routine? And how much time will they have to get right with the adjustment with a 3-hour time difference?
We'll certainly find out, brother. Appreciate you as always.
Likewise, man. Have a good weekend coming up.
You as well. Good broadcast to you, brother.
Thank you.
Up next, our buddy K-Bro. Kevin ready to go, baby. He is sitting in the wings. I see you, buddy. Sorry about your Mets, but if it's any consolation to you, you know what happened to the Reds.
Yeah, I watched the end of that game last night, Jim, and they tried to make a comeback a little bit, but against that Dodger bullpen, but not quite enough. But yeah, it's better than my alternative, me throwing things at the TV on Sunday as the Mets got shut out in a must-win game, and the Brewers did their part by beating the Reds that day, and all the Mets had to do was freaking beat the Marlins, and they couldn't do it. So it's the sadness factory continues, and then I had to watch the Jets lose on Monday Night Football too. So it's,
well, hopefully we can talk some football on the backside and things and brighten you up. We'll be back with more with K-Bro on the other side. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Thursday. Big game weeks coming up for many, many teams. Kevin Brockway from the Gainesville Sun, who covers the Gators on the beat, but the SEC throughout. And, I just gave a nickname today, Paul Feinbum. Am I creating that, or has anybody else ever said that?
Well, he's running for office, right? Or
has anyone ever said that nickname, or did I just come up with that?
You can't, that people have, they've referred to Paul as.
Come on,
I've met Paul. I like Paul.
I know, but he's just such a mouthpiece. I was comparing him to Joe Klatt because Joe Klatt works for Fox, but yet he is not brand biased towards the Big Ten. He calls it as he sees it because he's a football guy. He actually knows the game. He's not a mouthpiece. He doesn't have to say outlandish things to get attention. And I think that's the difference between him and Feinbum. So
I think,
I won't have him to kick around very long.
I think all those networks are a little partisan to an extent, although I haven't followed Klatt.
Sure.
Klatt's kind of a Big 12 guy, though, right? Didn't he go to Colorado or something? Or
yeah, but what am I saying? But regardless, he's not brand biased. He had more SEC teams in his CFP poll this week than anybody, and so he does it down the middle. I mean, I can honestly say that.
It's crazy. I mentioned this on a show earlier. By the transitive property, right? Virginia beats Florida State. Florida State beats Alabama. Alabama beats Georgia. Does that make Virginia better than Georgia?
It's crazy. It is crazy.
That's kind of the topsy-turvy world that we're in right now in college football. I think there's a lot more parity, and I think again, this is another non-conference schedule. The SEC is not being exposed. Is being exposed as not being as dominant in years past. I mean, it's still one of the top teams in the league, but for Alabama to lose at Florida State and then they go to Georgia and they beat Georgia. I mean, what does that say about Georgia?
Yeah, but the thing I've said earlier about the SEC is they're deeper than, say, the Big Ten. The Big Ten is stronger at the top, but they don't go as deep. And that is, to me, where the Big Ten has to catch up. They've got to get, whether it's Illinois, whether it's USC, whether, whomever, you've got to have more teams that are capable of beating a team at your top. I look forward to the day, which I think is coming soon, maybe, to where the 7th place Big Ten team can beat the number 1 team. Because right now in the SEC today, that is what we have, I believe. I don't think that, say, Ole Miss goes unbeaten in the SEC this year.
Well, to me, the eye test, the biggest difference between the two conferences is the speed, because I've covered both. And you come down here and it's just a much faster league, I think. And, and the SEC has big, fast guys. I think the Big Ten has big guys, but the SEC, the difference in the SEC. Now, look, there are some speed teams.
Oregon, I will bring up Oregon.
There are some speed
Ohio
teams
State.
In the Big Ten, Ohio State, Oregon,
Indiana.
Michigan gets some speed. Sometimes Indiana does. I would say that, but I mean, Iowa's a plotting team. Illinois is a plotting team. Northwestern is a plotting team. And some of those teams just don't have the athletes to keep up with some of the SEC teams, and it gets exposed in the bowl games. But that being said, I do think that, obviously, look, the cream of the crop of the Big Ten has proven the last couple of years that they're as good as anyone, certainly Ohio State and Michigan.
What about your guy down there at the head coach? All we've heard about all year long is Florida's coaching situation with Billy Napier. Is he going to hang in there? Is he going to not? I mean, that would seem to just wreak havoc, though, with the program all season long. If that's the text of the conversation.
Well, what's interesting is I think we're starting to see a little frustration, even a little apathy, right? This Florida-Texas game at the Swamp was supposed to be this huge big ticket. and everyone was saying, $400 and $500 a ticket on secondary markets. I mean, it's down to 150. It's down to 90, and it got, it's a 3:30
Now,
game.
is that because of Florida or Texas? Because Texas is not exactly, what have they done?
I mean, well, it's mainly because of Florida, although the Texas, the Arch Manning hype too, I wrote about that earlier in the week. Like, look at the QBRs of these two guys. They were, pumped up in the, this is going to be this big marquee matchup. DJ Lagway's QBR right now is 92 out of 135 teams. Arch is 71, right? You've got a bunch of quarterbacks in the country that are playing much better than these guys. Your guy in Indiana, Fernando Mendoza, being an example. Jesse Aguiar, look at what he's done at Tennessee. So a lot of these unlikely QBs that have done a good job, and yet here we have, two quarterbacks that are still trying to find their way. And Arch is a junior. He hasn't had much playing experience, and DJ's a sophomore. He had a good freshman year. He was certainly banged up in the offseason, but this is going to be probably here a low scoring slogfest. But I think it's more on the Florida side that fans are just kind of fed up with Billy Napier. And you would have thought, right, that he would be the first SEC coach that was fired, but it was Sam Pittman instead, partly because they got blown out by Notre Dame and partly because they had an interim in place and Bobby Petrino, I think, who they trusted for the rest of the season. I don't know if Florida has that, and I've heard that that's one of the factors right now that's keeping Billy Napier afloat here. But if they lose one or two more games and they come back to Mississippi State for homecoming 1-5, that's going to create a really toxic atmosphere down here.
Yeah, we've seen college basketball is getting closer and closer to expansion of the NCAA tournament, which the expansion, I keep calling it the expansion that nobody wants.
Yeah,
I've never seen something being pushed so hard that nobody wants. But it seems like it is going to be coming. The NCAA is currently considering that expansion of the tournament with to a proposal to add 76 teams starting in the 26-27 season. That expansion would include a 12-game open round played at 2 sites, significantly reshaping March Madness. However, the NCAA has decided not to expand the men's or women's tournament in 26, it looks like, with discussions for that and beyond. But again, it's just nobody wants this. Did we not see last year that it's not necessary? They did not have 68 teams that belonged in the damn tournament last year. So why all of a sudden do we have 10 more that do?
Well, one of my qualms about the whole thing is when they expand to 68, right? And we were at the first 4 event in Dayton that one year when Indiana played Wyoming, but it didn't even feel like an NCAA tournament win, right? They shuffle it off to Dayton. They put it on True TV where you can't find it. It's like it doesn't. All the brackets are 60. You never see a bracket with 68 teams. I mean, all the brackets are 64 anyway, just because it's perfectly set up that way. So why keep expanding it? If you're going to keep expanding it, all you're going to be doing is, especially those earlier rounds, you're going to be just watering them down and, putting them on like some obscure network with, followed by Impractical Jokers or something. It's not really like the tournament. You know what I mean? It just didn't, we had to a couple of years ago, we had to, after Indiana beat, Wyoming and Dayton, we had to hop and schlep on a plane and, go cross country, and they did too, and travel a few time zones. And then they got blown out by St. Mary's in Portland, and it didn't even feel like a true NCAA tournament experience.
What is up next for you, my friend?
Yeah, well, you just follow along on Gator Sports. I got some, on Cormani McLean's redemption a little bit. He went out to Colorado with Dion. It didn't work out. Now he's back here, and he's playing well. He's got his head on straight. And then, you can see all our Texas coverage. And basketball started here. Boogie Flan looking really good in practice. Another pretty good addition for Todd Golden. I think they're going to be, back in the mix this year in March and be a team that's going to be heard from by the end of the year. What about Bruce Pearl retiring? That's interesting.
A little shocking, a little surprising. A lot of people think that he may be the guy running for office instead. We'll have to wait and find out and see about that. But yeah, that was definitely a surprise. The timing was surprising. And so there's usually, I don't know if that was just about getting his son the job with that timing, which it's kind of would point in that direction. But
I think that was a lot of it, yeah. I do think that was a lot of it.
Well, buddy, we look forward to hopefully next week to being able to do this again and get you on a little sooner so we can talk a little longer, because as we get into this season, these teams and the football season is really going to start to take shape after week 6.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating. And certainly I think Indiana football and Florida basketball are the two bright spots, but vice versa, I don't know. Certainly for Florida football has not gotten off to a good start down here.
Well, buddy, it's always a great start when we have you, and we appreciate you as always.
All right. Thank you, buddy.
Make sure you're giving Kevin a follow at Kevin Brockway G1 on Twitter and everywhere else, buddy. We've got more coming up this week. Back tomorrow to do it again. Cannot wait. Big thanks to each and every one of you today. Without you, we've got no reason to be here. We're back tomorrow, like I said. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.